Hi guys, we've got a 6-marker question on potable water and the processes involved to obtain potable water or to deal with wastewater. Now this is something that you all need to know whether you're doing triple or combined, and this is a topic that students find really tricky in my experience. So I wanted to do a whole 6-marker on it to really help you understand how to get marks from this kind of question. So water that is safe to drink is called potable water. Compare how easily potable water can be obtained from both wastewater and groundwater. So there's two different processes involved that deal with these two types. So wastewater is things that come from houses or buildings or factories that contain lots of quite harmful bacteria or harmful chemicals like toxic metal compounds. Also, farming waste contains pesticides or fertilizers, quite nasty stuff that has to be treated very thoroughly before it can then be released back into the environment. So this is not water that's then goes back into the kind of drinking system straight away. It's released back into the environment. So let's just write back into the environment. But groundwater is treated, and there's fewer processes involved. That is then put back into the drinking water system. So we're going to look at both of these processes first. We're going to go through what they are briefly, and then we're going to compare how easily they're obtained, water's obtained. So you do get marks in this question for describing the processes and for comparing. So let's start with wastewater first. So if nothing else, this is just a good revision of these processes. So for wastewater, the first step that happens is the water is screened, removal of grit takes place, or any large particles in that wastewater. So we'll say screening and grit removal. That is to remove large particles. Now, second of all, there's a process called sedimentation. So that water, once the large parts have been removed, is kind of left to settle in a very large tank. All the solid kind of sludge, the sewage sludge, will sink down to the bottom and any water will remain on top. So the water is called effluent and the solid stuff is called sewage sludge. So the process is sedimentation and that produces effluent and sewage sludge. So effluent is the liquid part and the sewage sludge is the solid part. Now that effluent is now treated aerobically, so bacteria that respire aerobically added, and that reduces any solid waste left in that water, that effluent, and then it can be released back into the environment. So aerobic biological treatment means bacteria added that respire aerobically, break it down, break anything in there down. Sorry, I should have said also that this is treated with sterilization process. So chlorine, ozone or UV light is added to then kill that bacteria before it's released. So my mistake there. So released back into the environment after sterilization. So sterilization can be using chlorine, ozone, which is a type of oxygen compound, or UV light. That's the effluent dealt with, and then the sewage sludge is anaerobically digested, so broken down by a different type of bacteria anaerobically. That can then be used to produce natural gas. So the bacteria release natural gas, which can be removed and used to generate electricity. And then any kind of waste, any of the waste matter left behind can be used as fertilizer. So the sludge is anaerobically digested by bacteria. So that's in the absence of oxygen. This produces natural gas, and the waste solid matter can be used as fertilizer. So quite a lot of steps there, quite a lot of processes involved with treatment of wastewater. If we look at groundwater, so this is fresh water from lakes, rivers, etc. We can treat that to make it drinkable. It takes fewer processes. So first of all, that water is filtered through filter beds and removes any particles that are not soluble. It's then sterilised using similar techniques as before, chlorine, ozone and UV to kill bacteria, and that is basically how it's treated. So step one, filtered in filter beds to remove those particles. And then step 2 is sterilisation, using chlorine, ozone or UV light as before. Let's just write as before, save space. That's to kill bacteria. So we've described the processes for each. Now the question asks us to compare how easily it's obtained. So you can see that it's a lot more difficult to obtain water from wastewater because there's more processes and it takes more time. Conversely, groundwater is easier to obtain because there's fewer processes and it takes less time. So we're just going to write a little summary sentence to finish this question off. So let's say groundwater is easier to obtain, and then that's because there's fewer processes and it takes less time. So that's enough to get you 6 marks here. So we've gone into detail, we've used scientific processes, we've identified how they're different, we've answered the question about how easily they're obtained. Okay, I hope that helps.